Okay, so this evening we're on the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, and we're reading the chapter called Advice to an Actor. As I think everyone who's been here knows, Girish Ghosh, who was the father of Indian theater and a very renowned playwright in Bengal, happened to be a disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, a very, very devoted disciple. So he brought actors to see him quite often, and Ramakrishna went to his theater in Calcutta, the Star Theater, to see religious dramas. So this was in 1884, and we've already talked about some of the things. Sri Ramakrishna had rested on his bed only a few minutes when Hari, Narayan, Narendra Banerjee, and other devotees arrived from Calcutta and saluted him. Narendra Banerjee was the son of the professor of Sanskrit at the Presidency College of Calcutta. Because of friction with other members of the family, he had rented a separate house where he lived with his wife and children. Narendra was a very simple and guileless man. He practiced spiritual discipline, and at the time of meditation, heard various sounds, the sound of a gong, and so on. He had traveled in different parts of India, and he visited the master now and then. Narayan was a schoolboy, 16 or 17 years old. He often visited the master, who was very fond of him. Hari lived with his brothers at their Bug Bazaar house. Hari became Swami Turiyananda. Lived with his brothers at their Bug Bazaar house. He had studied up to the matriculation class in the General Assembly institution. Then he had given up his studies and devoted his time at home to the contemplation of God, the reading of the scriptures, and the practice of yoga. He also visited the master now and then. Sri Ramakrishna often sent for Hari when he went to Balaram's house in Bag Bazaar. Master to the devotees, I've heard a great deal about Buddha. He is one of the 10 incarnations of God. Hindu mythology speaks of 10 incarnations of God. Brahman is immovable, immutable, inactive, and of the nature of consciousness. When a man merges his buddhi, his intelligence, in bodha, consciousness, then he attains the knowledge of Brahman. He becomes Buddha, enlightened. Nangta used to say that the mind merges in the buddhi, and the buddhi in bodha, consciousness. The aspirant does not attain the knowledge of Brahman as long as he's conscious of his ego. The ego comes under one's control after one has obtained the knowledge of Brahman and seen God. Otherwise, the ego cannot be controlled. It is difficult to catch one's own shadow, but when the sun is overhead, the shadow is within a few inches of the body. A devotee, what is the vision of God like? Master, haven't you seen a theatrical performance? The people are engaged in conversation. When suddenly the curtain goes up, then the entire mind of the audience is directed at the play. The people don't look at other things any longer. Samadhi is to go within oneself like that. When the curtain is rung down, people look around again. Just so. When the curtain of Maya falls, the mind becomes externalized. To Narendra Banerjee, you've traveled a great deal. Tell us something about the sadhus. Narendra told the story of 2 yogis in Bhutan who used to drink daily a pound of the bitter juice of neem leaves. He had also visited the hermitage of a holy man on the bank of the Narmada. At the sight of the Bengali Babu dressed in European clothes, the sadhu had remarked, he has a knife hidden under his clothes next to his belly. The master, one should keep pictures of holy men in one's room. That constantly quickens divine ideas. Banerjee, I have your picture in my room, also the picture of a sadhu living in the mountains, blowing on a piece of lighted charcoal in a bowl of hemp. Master, it is true that one's spiritual feelings are awakened by looking at the picture of a sadhu. It is like being reminded of the custard apple by looking at an imitation one, or by stimulating the desire for enjoyment by looking at a young woman. Therefore I tell you that you should constantly live in the company of holy men. To Banerjee, you know very well the suffering of the world. You suffer whenever you accept enjoyment. As long as the kite kept the fish in its beak, it was tormented by the flock of crows. One finds peace of mind in the company of holy men. The alligator remains underwater a long time, but every now and then it rises to the surface and breathes with a deep wheezing noise. Then it gives a sigh of relief. Actor, revered sir, what you have just said about enjoyment is very true. One ultimately courts disaster if one prays to God for enjoyment. Various desires come to the mind, and by no means all of them are good. God is the Kalpataro, the wish-fulfilling tree. A man gets whatever he asks of God. Suppose it comes to his mind, God is the Kalpataro. Well, let me see if a tiger will appear before me. Because he thinks of the tiger, it really appears and devours him. Master, yes, you must remember that the tiger comes. What more shall I tell you? Keep your mind on God. Don't forget him. God will certainly reveal himself to you if you pray to him with sincerity. Another thing, sing the name of God at the end of each performance. Then the actors, the singers, and the audience will go home with the thought of God in their minds. The actors saluted the master and took their leave. Two ladies, devotees of Sri Ramakrishna, entered the room and saluted the master. They had been fasting in preparation for this visit. They were sisters-in-law, the wives of two brothers, and were 22 or 23 years old. They were mothers of children. Both of them had their faces covered with veils. Master to the ladies, worship Shiva. This worship is described in a book called Nitya Karma. Learn the rituals from it. In order to perform the worship of God, you will be preoccupied for a long time with such religious duties as plucking flowers, making sandal paste, polishing the utensils for worship, and arranging offerings. As you perform these duties, your mind will naturally be directed to God. You will get rid of meanness, anger, jealousy, and so forth. When you two sisters talk to each other, always talk about spiritual matters. Just one sec. The thing is somehow to unite the mind with God. You must not forget him, not even once. Your thought of him should be like the flow of oil, without any interruption. If you worship with love, even a brick or stone as God, even though, then through his grace you can see him. Remember what I've just said to you? One should perform such worship as the Shiva Puja. Once the mind has become mature, one doesn't have to continue formal worship for long. The mind then always remains united with God. Meditation and contemplation become a constant habit of mine. The elder sister-in-law, will you give us some instruction? Master, affectionately, I don't give initiation. If a guru gives initiation, he must assume responsibility for the disciple's sin and suffering. The Divine Mother has placed me in the state of a child. Perform the Shiva Puja as I told you. Come here now and then. We shall see what happens later on through the will of God. I asked you to chant the name of Hari at home. Are you doing that? Elder sister-in-law, yes. Master, why have you fasted? You should take your meal before you come here. Women are but so many forms of my Divine Mother. I cannot bear to see them suffer. You are all images of the Mother of the universe. Come here after you have eaten, and you will feel happy. Saying this, Sri Ramakrishna asked Ramalal to give the ladies some food. They were given fruit, sweets, drinks, and other offerings from the temple. The Master said, "You've eaten something. Now my mind is at peace. I cannot bear to see women fast." It was about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Sri Ramakrishna was sitting on the steps of the Shiva temples. Adhar, Dr. Nitai, M., and several other devotees were with him. Master to the devotees, I want to tell you something. A change has been coming over my nature. The Master came down a step and sat near the devotees. It seemed that he intended to communicate some of his deeper experiences to them. Master, you are devotees. I have no hesitation in telling you this. Nowadays, I don't see the spirit form of God. He is revealed to me in human form. It is my nature to see the form of God, to touch and embrace him. God is saying to me, you have assumed a body, therefore enjoy God through his human forms. God, no doubt, dwells in all, but he manifests himself more through man than through other beings. Is man an insignificant thing? He can think of God, he can think of the infinite, while other living beings cannot. God exists in all living beings, animals, plants, nay, in all beings, but he manifests himself more through man than through these others. Fire exists in all beings, in all things, but its presence is felt more in wood. Rama said to Lakshmana, look at the elephant, brother. He is such a big animal, but he cannot think of God. But in the incarnation, there is a greater manifestation of God than in other men. Rama said to Lakshmana, brother, if you see in a man ecstatic love of God, if he laughs, weeps, and dances in divine ecstasy, then know for certain that I dwell in him. The Master remained silent. After a few minutes, he resumed the conversation. Master, Keshav Sen used to come here frequently. As a result, he changed a great deal. Of late, he became quite a remarkable man. Many a time he came here with his party, but he also wanted to come alone. In the earlier years of his life, Keshav didn't have much opportunity to live in the company of holy men. I visited him in his house on Kolutola Street. Hridoy was with me. We were shown into the room where Keshav was working. He was writing something. After a long while, he put aside his pen, got off his chair, and sat on the floor with us. But he didn't salute us or show any respect in any other way. He used to come here now and then. One day in a spiritual mood, I said to him, one should not sit before a sadhu with one leg over the other. That increases one's rajas. As soon as he and his friends would arrive, I would salute them before they bowed to me. Thus they gradually learnt to salute a holy man, touching the ground with their foreheads. I said to Keshav, chant the name of Hari. In the Kali Yuga, one should sing the names and glories of God. After that, they began to sing the name of God with drums and cymbals. There's a footnote here. For some years before meeting the Master, Keshav and his followers had been singing the name of Brahma to the accompaniment of drums and cymbals. After meeting Sri Ramakrishna in 1875, Keshav showed particular devotion to the singing of the names of Hari and the Divine Mother. So he had been one of the members of the Brahmo Samaj. Okay. Do you know how my faith in the name of Hari was all the more strengthened? Holy men, as you know, frequently visit the temple garden. One day a sadhu from Multan arrived. He was waiting for a party going to Gangasagar. The sadhu was of his age, pointing to him. It was he who said to me, "The way to realize God in the Kali Yuga is the path of bhakti as prescribed by Narada." One day Keshav came here with his followers. They stayed till 10 at night. They were all seated in the Panchavati. Pratap and several others said they would like to spend the night here. Keshav said, "No, I must go. I have some work to do." I laughed and said, "Can't you sleep without the smell of your fish basket?" Once a fishwife was a guest in the house of a gardener who raised flowers. She came here with her empty basket after selling fish in the market and was asked to sleep in a room where flowers were kept. But because of the fragrance of the flowers, she couldn't get to sleep for a long time. Her hostess saw her condition and said, "Hello, why are you tossing from side to side so restlessly?" The fishwife said, "I don't know, my friend. Perhaps the smell of the flowers has been disturbing my sleep. Can you give me my fish basket? Perhaps that will put me to sleep." The basket was brought to her. She sprinkled water on it and set it near her nose. Then she fell sound asleep and snored all night. At this story, the followers of Keshav burst out into loud laughter. Keshav conducted the prayer that evening at the bathing ghat on the river. After the worship, I said to him, "It is God who manifests himself in one aspect as the scriptures. Therefore, one should worship the sacred books, such as the Vedas, the Puranas, and the Tantras. In another aspect, he has become the devotee. The heart of the devotee is God's drawing room. One can easily find one's master in the drawing room. Therefore, by worshiping his devotee, one worships God himself." Keshav and his followers listened to my words with great attention. It was a full moon night. The sky was flooded with light. We were seated in the open court at the top of the stairs leading to the river. I said, "Now let us all chant, Bhagavata, Bhakta, Bhagavan." All chanted in unison, Bhagavata, Bhakta, Bhagavan. Next I said to them, "Say, Brahman is verily Shakti, Shakti is verily Brahman." Again they chanted in unison, "Brahman is verily Shakti, Shakti is verily Brahman." I said to them, "He whom you address is Brahman. Brahma is none other than she whom I call Mother. Mother is a very sweet name." Then I said to them, "Say, Guru Krishna Vaishnava." At this, Keshav said, "We must not go so far, sir. If we do that, then all will take us for Orthodox Vaishnavas." I used to tell Keshav now and then, "He whom you address as Brahma is none other than she whom I call Shakti, the primal energy. It is called Brahman in the Vedas when it transcends speech and thought and is without attributes and action. I call it Shakti, Ajya Shakti, and so forth when I find it creating, preserving, and destroying the universe." I said to Keshav, "It is extremely difficult to realize God while leading a worldly life. How can a typhoid patient be cured if he is kept in a room with tamarind, pickle, and jars of water are kept? Therefore one should go into solitude now and then to practice spiritual discipline. When the trunk of a tree becomes thick and strong, an elephant can be tied to it, but a young sapling is eaten by cattle. That is why Keshav would say in his lectures, live in the world after being strengthened in spiritual life. To the devotees, you see, Keshav was a great scholar. He lectured in English. Many people honored him. Queen Victoria herself talked to him. But when Keshav came here, he would be bare-bodied and bring some fruit, as one should when visiting a holy man. He was totally free of egotism. To Adhar, you are a scholar and a deputy magistrate, but with all that you are henpecked. Go forward, beyond the forest of sandalwood. There are many more valuable things, silver mines, gold mines, diamonds, and other gems. The woodcutter was chopping wood in the forest. The brahmachari said to him, go forward. Ramakrishna came down from the steps of the Shiva temple and went to his own room through the courtyard. The devotees were with him. Just then Ram Chatterjee came and said that the Holy Mother's attendant had had an attack of cholera. Ram to the master, I told you about it at 10 o'clock this morning, but you didn't pay any attention to me. Master, what could I do? Ram, yes, what could you do? But there were Rakhal, Ramlal, and others. Even they didn't pay any attention. M. Kishori has gone to Ulambazar to get medicine. Master, alone? Where will he get medicine? M. Yes, alone. He will get it at Ulambazar. Master to M. Tell the nurse what to do if the illness takes a turn for the worse or if the patient feels better. M. Yes, sir. The ladies mentioned before saluted the master and were about to take their leave. Sri Ramakrishna again said to them, perform the Shiva worship according to my instruction and have something to eat before you come here. Otherwise, I shall feel very unhappy. Come another day. Sri Ramakrishna sat down on the porch west of his room. Narendra Banerjee, Hari, M., and others sat by his side. The master knew about Narendra's family difficulties. Master, you see all these sufferings are because of a piece of loincloth. Now the footnote on this one. A reference to the following story, which Sri Ramakrishna often told his devotees. There was a sannyasi whose only possession was 2 pairs of loincloths. One day a mouse nibbled at one piece, so the holy man kept a cat to protect his loincloths from the mouse. Then he had to keep a cow to supply milk for the cat. Later he had to engage a servant to look after the cow. Gradually the number of his cows multiplied. He acquired pastures and farmland. He had to engage a number of servants. Thus he became, in course of time, a sort of landlord. And last of all, he had to take a wife to look after his big household. One day one of his friends, another monk, happened to visit him and was surprised to see his altered circumstances. When asked the reason, the holy man said, "It is all for the sake of a piece of loincloth." Okay. A man takes a wife and begets children. Therefore, he must secure a job. The sadhu is worried about his loincloth, and the householder about his wife. Further, the householder may not live on good terms with his relatives, so he must live separately with his wife. With a laugh, Chaitanya once said to Nityananda, "Listen to me, brother. A man entangled in worldliness can never be free." M to himself, Perhaps the Master is referring to the world of avidya. It is the world of avidya that entangles the household. Avidya is no knowledge. That's what it is, when you're totally clueless about Maya. M was still living in a separate house with his wife on account of a misunderstanding with the other members of his family. So was Narendra Banerjee. Master to Banerjee, pointing to him, he also lives in a separate house. You two will get along very well. Once two men happened to meet. One said to the other, "Who are you?" "Oh, I'm away from my country," was the other's reply. The second man then asked the first, "And who are you?" "Pray." "Oh, I'm away from my beloved," was the answer. Both were in the same plight, so they got along very well. All laughed. But one need not have any fear if one takes refuge in God. God protects his devotees. Hari, well, why does it take many people such a long time to realize him? Master, the truth is that a man doesn't feel restless for God unless he is finished with his enjoyments and duties. The physician says, referring to the patient, let a few days pass first, then a little medicine will do him good. Narada said to Rama, Rama, you are passing your time in Ayodhya. How will Ravana be killed? You have taken this human body for that purpose alone. Rama replied, Narada, let the right time come. Let Ravana's past actions begin to bear fruit. Then everything will be made ready for his death. Hari, why is there so much suffering in the world? Master, this world is the Leela of God. That's the play. It is like a game. In this game, there are joy and sorrow, virtue and vice, knowledge and ignorance, good and evil. The game cannot continue if sin and suffering are altogether eliminated from the creation. In the game of hide and seek, one must touch the granny in order to be free. But the granny is never pleased if she is touched at the very outset. It is God's wish that the play should continue for some time. Then, out of 100,000 kites, at best but one or two break free, and thou dost laugh and clap thy hands, O mother, watching them. In other words, after the practice of hard spiritual discipline, one or two have the vision of God through his grace and are liberated. Then the Holy Mother claps her hands in joy and exclaims, Bravo, there they go. Hari, but this play of God is our death. Master smiling, please tell me who you are. God alone has become all this. Maya, the universe, living beings, and the 24 cosmic principles. As the snake I bite, and as the charmer I cure. It is God himself, who has become both vidya and avidya. He remains deluded by the maya of avidya ignorance. Again, with the help of the cure, of the guru, he is cured by the maya of vidya, knowledge. Ignorance, knowledge, and perfect wisdom. The jnani sees that God alone exists and is the doer, that he creates, preserves, and destroys. The vijnani sees that it is God who has become all this. After attaining Mahabhava and Prema, one realizes that nothing exists but God. Bhakti pales before Bhava. Bhava ripens into Mahabhava and Prema. To Banerjee, do you still hear the gong-like sound at the time of meditation? Banerjee, yes, sir, every day. Besides, I have visions of God's form. Do such things stop after the mind has once experienced them? Master, true, once the wood catches fire, it cannot be put out. To the devotees, he knows many things about faith. Banerjee, I have too much faith. Master, bring the women of your family to those of Balaram's. Banerjee, who is Balaram? Master, don't you know Balaram? He lives at Bospara. Sri Ramakrishna loved guileless people. Narendra Banerjee was absolutely guileless. The Master loved Niranjan because he too was without guile. Niranjan later became Swami Niranjanananda. Master to M, why do I ask you to see Niranjan? It is to find out if he is truly guileless. And that was the end of that day. Are there any questions about anything we've read or comments? No questions or comments? Okay.
You kind of touched upon the point of saying that God can be kind of the Ave and
The Vidya and the Avidya?
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
If God is everything, if Brahman pervades everything, then it is both knowledge and ignorance, because nothing exists but God. So, but you have to get to that stage of realization to know that.
I understand.
Yeah, it's kind of confusing. It's, that's when they say that Jnani knows that God alone exists and is the doer. He preserves, creates, preserves, and destroys. So that's one level of realization. Now, Ramakrishna talked about the Vijnani who goes beyond even knowledge and has the experience that everything is one. There is nothing but that consciousness. And when you have that realization, then there is no knowledge or ignorance. You go beyond both. You go beyond all the pairs of opposites. So, I hope that helps. Okay. Any other question or? Okay, speak up loudly because I've got my hearing aids.
I thought it was interesting that Ramakrishna asked the women to worship Shiva, and it's interesting. I mean, I wonder why.
I don't know. I really don't know. I think because this is my own speculation. Okay. Everyone says that Shiva is the most easily appeased and accepting God, that you don't have to do extreme ritual. Anytime you have Shiva, he'll accept anything that you offer.
Okay.
But he asked them to learn the specific to train their minds so that they could think of God at all times. Because he asked them to look at the nitya karma and learn the rituals. And then he also said, then by putting your mind completely on picking flowers, making sandal paste, doing everything to prepare for the worship, that trains your mind to think of God.
Okay.
So, and don't fast.
No problem there.
Yeah, I don't either. Okay. All right, then, if there's nothing else. Oh, I've got tomorrow, Swami Vedarupananda is going to talk about psychological Mahavada, which Mayavada. I have no idea what that means. Psychological Mayavada. But I know that it will be extremely well prepared and very interesting. Then Wednesday we'll once again read Swami Akhandananda at 5 o'clock here in the temple, if we don't have a power outage, which is why we couldn't do it last week. And Saturday we will have this Saturday, Gospel of Ramakrishna at 5 o'clock. So I hope we'll see you all. Okay. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.